Hey guys, I'm Cameron. Welcome to my channel. This is actually my first video that I am filming and posting after about 2 months of a break, and that is because we just had a baby. So I wanted to make my first video back about adjusting to life as a mom of two under two boys. There's so much I want to say about this transition, all really good things, honestly. So this video might get chopped up into two different parts. We'll see exactly how it goes. But let's get started. So if I look off to the side, it's because I wrote down some notes because with a lack of sleep and also just mommy brain, I don't have the memory that I did 9 months ago. So first off, I wrote down C-section versus VBAC recovery. So just for a little bit of background, my first son, he was born via C-section. It was tough. The recovery was a lot harder than it was this time. So actually, the day after I gave birth to our second son, just a couple months ago, I felt like it was going to be as hard of a recovery. It was just as painful, seemingly, as when I got the C section. But then just a few days later, I was already up and walking around and doing most of the normal things. Going to the bathroom was not fun, but basically everything else felt a lot more normal than it did the first time around with the C section. That one definitely took a few weeks. Okay, next on the list, I wrote the lack of sleep was actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't as big of a deal this time. And I honestly think that's just because with our first son, I was really stressed about getting him on a very strict schedule of sleep and feeding. And I was trying to track how many night feedings he would have and hopefully see that number fall over a very specific period of time. And this was because I really bought into the book Baby Wise. And a lot of moms out there have probably heard of Baby Wise, especially if you've ever read any parenting books. And I'm not saying it's all bad, but it definitely put me in a position where I had all these expectations for my first son, for his sleep, that ended up just not working out. And because I was stressing myself and trying to hold him to a standard, trying to hold myself to a standard, our sleep was actually not as restful. Versus this time with our second baby, I kind of just threw all that out the window and said, I am just going to let him do what he wants to do. And so I feed him every couple of hours during the day, and then I feed him whenever he wakes up at night. And it's honestly been great. I am used to the lack of sleep, used to being tired at this point, and I have a toddler that keeps me moving constantly throughout the day. And so I just don't have time to think about being tired. So I think that's been the biggest reason why I don't feel like the lack of sleep this time is as big of a deal as it was last time. So that's encouraging. Okay, the second one. You always have something to do. That's for sure. I last time with our first son, anyone who's had a newborn knows that if they are willing to nap, and maybe your newborn is not, but if your baby is willing to nap during the day consistently, even if you're holding them, you can have those breaks, those regular breaks throughout the day where your baby's napping. And even if you don't get to nap that much, you can still kind of just relax and sit on the couch, hold your baby, whatever you want to do during those periods that doesn't wake the baby, basically. But now, when you have a toddler and a newborn, you are on both your toddler's schedule and your newborn schedule. So you're trying to get your newborn to eat and sleep, and you're changing two sets of diapers, and you're also doing all the things that you were doing with your toddler before. So you are up and awake way more throughout the day. I probably get about 20 to 30 minutes to nap a day, if that, just because my older son needs his mom and he needs his play buddy. So him and I are kind of doing the same thing we were doing before, but now I'm just carrying a baby around everywhere. Okay, number three, asking for help has been the biggest thing during this postpartum period. We actually took it to a bit of an extreme that I felt like I needed some extra support when my husband went back to work. So we are moving in for a time with my in laws. So that's why my background's different. But honestly, they are so wonderful. I love my in laws, and they have been so incredibly helpful. So, even if you're not in a position where you could literally move in with your parents or your in laws or a sibling or anything like that, still try to ask for help. Try to ask for a friend to make you dinner one night. Ask for someone to come over and help you clean up the house if you're worried that things are getting messy and you just can't keep up with two kids. And the rest of your responsibilities as a mom, it really helps to ask for help. And this was a really big hurdle for me because I always felt like asking for help was being a burden, that it was really putting something on someone else that they wouldn't do otherwise. But as I got into a position where I really didn't have a choice, two under two is a lot, and I really needed help in a lot of ways, I started doing it even if I was a little uncomfortable. And eventually I realized it makes people happy to be able to help. When you're asking the right people, people who love you, people who care about you and your kids, they're going to be really happy to spend that extra time with you, spend that extra time around your great children, and it's going to all around be a good experience for everyone. I'm Catholic, so I kind of think about it from the perspective of asking other people for help is giving them an opportunity to be sanctified by helping you. It's giving them an opportunity to be like Jesus to you and do things for you that you really need and support you in your time of adjusting to two babies. Okay, next, try not to make too many plans or have expectations for your schedule or your kids' schedules or behavior. So, this is a little bit to do with what I was talking about before, where I had all these expectations about my first son sleeping, and that was really stressful, but also about my toddler's behavior now. So, I've tried not to expect too much from my newborn, and that's been pretty easy because I always say, he's tiny. He's just learning everything and just adjusting to the new world outside of the womb, which must be an insane adjustment. I can't even imagine. But also, I've tried not to have too many expectations for my toddler. I've tried not to expect him to sleep as well or eat in normal times or eat the same things that he's always been eating. He's a little bit of a picky eater anyway. Or even really have expectations about how he interacts with his brother. So they're only about 19 months apart. So my toddler's still little. And to take a lot of the pressure off of me and the kids and just kind of all be able to be a little bit more at peace, I've just let them be who they are. And I've let them kind of figure out, particularly my toddler, figure out how much he wants to interact with his brother. And honestly, after just a few weeks, he started coming up and giving him kisses and wanting to hold him, which I always do help him when he tries to hold his brother. But it was really nice because in the first few weeks, he wasn't really interested in the baby. He mostly wanted to play with his toys. He's just learning a lot of new words, so his world is changing really quickly too right now. But eventually, he's gotten really used to having a baby around and he really likes his brother. So I think just not having too many expectations for the kids and not too much for myself either. Not to be the same, insane cleaner that I once was, or to be able to cook dinner basically ever. My husband's been cooking some, and my in laws have been cooking a lot, and kind of just trying to take things a day at a time and be okay if things are not the same way that they were before the baby was born, because they shouldn't be, but also if they're not the same way that I thought they would be. If I'm not getting all the stuff done that I wanted to, or if I'm making super homemade videos like this one where I'm glancing at my notes every 2 minutes and don't have any sort of solidified script or plan for what I'm talking to you guys about. So, oh, and speaking of not having too many expectations, my Kindle screen just turned off. So give me a second. Okay. So next, focusing on enjoying the transitions. Okay, so this has been a really big one for me, particularly from a Catholic Christian perspective. What I mean by enjoying the transitions is that I started to realize that with two kids especially, but this was also happening with one, that I would try to rush through moments where we were getting to some sort of activity. So like if my big son needed a diaper change and he needed to have that done before we go to the park, I would try to kind of rush through the diaper change, rush through getting everything ready and in the stroller, and then getting the boys to the park. And then once we were at the park, I could kind of relax and really enjoy the moment more. But I think I've been trying to challenge myself instead to enjoy every single moment in itself. So even a diaper change, being thankful that one day I will not be changing my toddler's diapers anymore. One day he'll be potty trained and he'll never need that from me again. And so it's a really special way right now to be able to love him. And so I'm trying to enjoy that a little more and just kind of gaze on my kids' faces and think about the fact that they're only going to be this age once. And so in every moment, whether it's, finishing up nursing or it's sweeping the floor while I'm wearing my newborn, or it's, getting my older son cleaned up after a meal. It's just every moment in itself feels like it's enough. And I'm trying to really honor the fact that God has given me each of these individual moments and not only focus on enjoying the moments that maybe are more inherently interesting, like being at the park or reading to my son or whatever it may be. Okay, next. Last one. So actually, I think this will just end up being one video, which is great. Check how I talk to hubby. Yeah, I saved this one for last because it's definitely going to be the longest. So I did not do the best job of keeping up with my prayer for the first 5 weeks after the baby was born, which, there's not really an excuse for that. But if there was ever an excuse, maybe it is having a child. So I noticed that as I was drifting from my regular prayer routine and was not reading as much on the saints and reading as much scripture, that I started just not being as nice to my husband. When we turn away from having Christ directly involved in every moment of our lives, we're just not going to be as good. And that's just how that is. And so I started to realize that not only was I in this, somewhat stressful time of taking care of 2 kids under 2, that I also, needed to be taking care of my husband. And some women might not like that. They might say, your husband needs to be taking care of you only. And he does. When he was on paternity leave, especially, he got some paternity leave, which we were really shocked by because his work is very intense. He was making all the meals and he was helping me clean and he was doing all the diaper changes and he basically everything that he could do that I couldn't do. So anything to do with nursing or, being there for the kids when they're sad or, comforting them. Those were all the things that I was doing, but he was doing basically everything else. And especially while I was recovering from the birth, the first couple of weeks. And so he does take great care of me. He is the most wonderful husband ever, but I still needed to be trying to take care of his emotional needs by just being kind, by asking for help instead of by complaining that he wasn't helping enough or wasn't doing what I wanted him to do. Asking for things gently, just generally being gentle with him and still trying to spend time with him, whether it's just, at the end of the night watching TV and sitting next to each other on the couch, holding hands, because I was always holding the newborn, so we weren't doing a ton of cuddling, the 2 of us. But it really did start to make me realize that if I'm not carrying through on my regular prayer routine, if I'm not trying to always have Jesus near me and be thinking of him and really prioritize that spiritual part of me, then I end up not being as good of a wife and probably not as good of a mom either. And so there's really, to me, for me, I'm trying to not make any excuses, even, having a baby or being tired, to let that habit slip in the future, because I believe my husband deserves the very best, and so do my kids. And, more than anything, God just wants us to love him and to love to be near him throughout our day, doing whatever it is that we're doing. Okay, that is everything that I wrote down. I'm sure I forgot a lot of things. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or want to know anything else about adjusting to life as a mom of 2 under 2. It's been honestly so awesome. And I think the transition has been a lot easier because we do have a ton of help and my family here really loves our kids. Our boys are great. Everybody loves them. And we also have a lot of, friends who have small children too. So that's amazing that they're all very understanding of our schedule and me being kind of MIA for the last several weeks. But anyway, leave a comment if you have any questions. And if you like this video or you like this sort of content, let me know. I'm thinking about transitioning some of the channel away from strictly marriage advice and more towards parenting and sort of experiences in the life of that sort of thing. So subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like that, and like this video, comment, all the things. Okay, till next time. Bye guys.